Hello and welcome to the American Patriots channel. This channel is dedicated to addressing America's challenges. Today I have a special guest with me, and her name is Macy. Come up. And here she is. She's a rescue dog, and we believe that she's a Chinese crested powder puff. Believe it or not, she was found running wild with a pack of dogs in the woods. But we really adore her and think she's the cutest thing. But today we have some serious issues to discuss. Many of the problems that America faces today need government support to resolve them. Yet government has proven to be only modestly effective at doing so. Why is this? Why is the government falling short on its promise to serve the people? And also, why is the government so divided? Today, we will examine the political system in our country and discover the answers to these questions. I'm Jeff Penrod, and I'm a retired nuclear power plant chemist. I am very good at analyzing and solving highly technical problems. Now, I'm using that same skill to solve America's problems. You might want to consider me as Dr. Jeff because I'm working to cure America's problems. The medicine that I use is truth, which will reveal what's going on so that we can determine what needs to be done. The platform that we have on this channel is a running tally of all the goals and actions that we have come up with so far. So let's look at what we have up to this point. So far, we've just had one episode, and that episode was focused on economic inequality. So if you missed it, go back and take a look at it. I think you'll find it to be very interesting. The goal that we came up with is to significantly reduce economic inequality by intervening where needed. And from that, there were three actions. First, to establish a national labor union for all workers below supervisory level. That way, workers will have a seat at the table and have a say-so in their wages, benefits, and working conditions. Second, to require companies to pay profit-sharing bonuses to all workers. And then third, to revise the tax code to ensure taxes are levied based on ability to pay. We saw that the more wealthy families in this country sometimes pay a lower tax rate than the poorer families, and so that needed to be corrected as well. Today we'll be looking at the corrupted political system, and we'll be adding the goal and actions when we come up with those. Folks, the following discussion on politics contains content that some viewers may find disturbing because our country has become very politically polarized. And yet, the truth is what we need to face in order to help our country solve its problems. We will not take sides in this video because, as it turns out, that's part of the problem. If there were ever a time in your life that you need to keep an open mind and remain objective, this is it. Your country needs you to become informed about this matter so that you can join others and free it from the bondage of a corrupted political system. So hold on, here we go. Our first step is to define political corruption. So here's what it's all about. Political corruption is a political process that is degraded, failing to serve the people due to a multiple-party system where partisanship, and we've seen that, leads to interpolitical conflict, well, that's going on as well, divides the nation, sure enough, we're seeing that, and gives rise to violent uprising against authority, and we're experiencing that too. Also, those of greater means have undue influence on the process, so that needs to be corrected. And finally, members who are motivated by greed for power and or wealth instead of motivated to serve the people. Okay, so for today, we're going to focus our discussion on the first item, which is the multiple party system. In order to understand political parties, we need to understand political ideologies. I'm sure you're familiar with the right and the left, but then it's actually a little more detailed than that. There's the center, then there's a little right of center, for a little further right, and then far right. There's a little left of center, left, and then far left. In general, the right side is considered the conservative side, and the left side is considered the liberal side. So, what's a conservative and what's a liberal? Well, let's find out. Conservatism focuses on traditional and moral values, low taxes, reduced government spending, reduced regulation, and a strong national defense. Those are all good things. Liberalism focuses on equal opportunity, equitable distribution of wealth, regulating economic activity, gender and racial equality, and social welfare. And those are all good things too. You may have heard of this, but some people are telling us that conservatives are bad, and other people are saying that liberals are bad. I didn't see anything bad there. All of those platforms, all the ideas on there were good. So maybe it has something to do with the political parties. Let's find out what the parties think of each other. In order to do that, let's ask the politicians. Let's listen to what they have to say. We'll need to find a politician that's pretty outspoken in order to hear what they really think. So in terms of Republicans, I bet you know of a good example that we can turn to, and that would be former President Trump, of course. Let's see what Trump says about the Democrats. So I'll read some of the comments that he's had to you. Well, he's made some disparaging comments. He called one crooked. He's used the word crazy, phony. He called one a flake. He used the word horrible, nasty, and he called one a joke. Well, it sounds like, based on what he's saying, the Republicans don't think very highly of the Democrats. Well, let's look again, because he put out a tweet a while back. What he said in that tweet is, the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat. Oh my, that's a terrible thing to say. And if the Republicans feel any way like that about the Democrats, I'd say they hate them. Well, let's look at the Democrat side and see what they think about the Republicans. Whether they have a kinder viewpoint or maybe about the same. For that, we can turn to our current Vice President Harris, because I have a quotation from her. So I'd like to read that. She said, and I quote, "And once Trump's gone and we have gained our rightful place in the White House, look out if you supported him and endorsed his actions, because we'll be coming for you next. You will feel the vengeance of a nation. No stone will be left unturned as we seek you out in every corner of this great nation. For it is you who have betrayed us." Wow, the Democrats hate the Republicans too. Sounds like each one wants to hunt the other down and, I don't know, maybe kill them or something. Who knows? At least they think of them as an enemy. So, wow, there's a tremendous divide there when we start to look at the parties. The ideologies looked great. I saw only good there. But the parties, it looks like there's some venom between the two. So what I would conclude is that the political parties in our country are bitter enemies and want nothing less than to crush the other side and to take control. They think the other side is totally bad and they don't want them to have any control whatsoever. Well, here's what I conclude from that. Based on that, I say our political parties are doing as much harm as they are good, maybe even more so. And I say that we need to dissolve our political parties because they're doing a lot of harm. We need to get rid of them. Now, I know what you're thinking, probably anyway, is that sounds like a really far out thing to say. The political parties, as we know, have been around for decades, in fact, centuries. And you're suggesting to get rid of them? Well, you don't know me, and so maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm totally wrong. In fact, maybe I'm a lunatic. I'm crazy in the head. Well, how can we resolve this then, though? Am I wrong? Am I right? Who knows? What we could do is we could turn to an expert and ask them what they say about political parties. So let's turn to someone in high office. Let's ask the President of the United States. No, not the current President of the United States. Let's ask the first President of the United States, George Washington. He's one of those guys that created things like the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. Those guys were geniuses. They created a form of government that has never been equal in the history of mankind. They absolutely know what it's like to have the right type of government, and they know how political parties function. So let's find out what George Washington says about political parties. And here's what he says. He said the alternate domination of one faction, that means one party, over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, we're certainly seeing that, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries, meaning in different times and places, here's what he's seen, is perpetrated the most horrid enormities. So he's seen some really, really bad things happen due to the fact that there have been political parties that are trying to dominate over the other. And then he says, is itself a frightful despotism, which is a form of government in which a single entity rules with absolute power. Well, we've just seen the parties hate each other. They want to destroy the other and gain absolute control. So it sounds like even though he wrote this 250 years ago, roughly, he's describing our current dilemma right now. Well, let's not just ask one person then, let's ask another too. George Washington was the first president of the United States. Let's ask the second president of the United States, John Adams. What does he think about a two-party system like we have? He says this, referring to a two-party system, in my humble apprehension, is to be dreaded as the greatest political evil under our Constitution. So now, have I convinced you yet? You don't have to take my word for it. Take the word from the first two presidents in our country. The founders who created our government system were geniuses and knew the very best of how to run a government. Well, if you're still on the fence and not too sure, watch this video. Okay, now you know the truth. You've seen it with your own eyes. Our government is very divided, and that's causing division in our country. It's causing unrest and even riots. And the two sides are fighting for control, and ultimately, one most likely will win out. But George Washington warned us about this. That's not a good thing. In fact, he said, eventually, you will end up with a despotic government, which means one where one party has total control. And he warned that when that happens, it will end very, very badly. So our only choice is to disband the multiple party system that we have now. Its time has come and it's over. Its usefulness has been worn out. It's doing as much harm as good and maybe more. But that's not the end of the story. It doesn't end like that. I have some really great news, ladies and gentlemen, because I have an answer for our problem, a unifying force. What we need to do is enact legislation to create a single party system, one that it is neutral and is accepting and inclusive of all ideologies. Notice what I just said. It is inclusive of all ideologies. This would truly be a welcoming party, a party of the people, a people's party. Not only would it have the advantage of uniting us, as opposed to the current system which is dividing us, but there are other advantages as well. For example, if a person is trying to become elected, now they have to choose between the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. And in either case, they may not entirely agree with their platform, but they won't be elected if they don't sign on with one of those tickets. So with the single party approach, a candidate would no longer be pressured to follow a particular party doctrine, but would be free to take positions based on their own viewpoints and belief systems. They could be true to themselves. We would end up with a multiple candidate election, one where the candidates came from varied ideologies. And think about the advantage to the voter then too. Right now the voter has basically two choices. Yeah, Republican flavor, Democrat flavor. It's sort of like going into a cafeteria and they tell you, we've got chicken and we've got mystery meat. Which one do you want? Well, a lot of times I'll bet you say, I don't really like either one. Am I right? I know that's happened with me. There's a Republican candidate and there's a Democrat candidate, and I don't like either one. Well, if there are multiple candidates, there's a lot better selection. It's like going to that same cafeteria and they say, we've got baked ham, we've got fish, chicken, roast beef, we've got turkey and steak. And hey, I like the steak. That's the one that suits me best. Well, here the voter would have all of these candidates to choose from, and they could select the one that best represents their own ideology. So this is a win-win for our country. It unifies us and brings us together and has many other advantages. Well, that's all I have for today. Next time, we're going to talk about how money buys influence in our government. Now, we know that everyone has influence in the government because we all have a vote. But the wealthy people and the corporations have bought themselves additional influence. That is as un-American as it gets. We are promised under the law to have equal representation, and yet there are some that have more influence and more representation than others. So don't miss it. That's going to be a good one. Well, that's all I have, so until next time, God bless America. See you then.